Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to my first Ask Me Anything here in LinkedIn, where we're going to talk about public speaking, negotiation, and executive presence. But first, let's introduce myself. So, my name is Jezebel, and I've been working in communications and corporate communications, public speaking for the last 20 years. And after all these years working and training leaders during my corporate positions, I decided to initiate my own journey. So today we are going to unveil some of these questions and some of these learnings acquired over the 20 years. But let's see if we are already joining the room. Yes, I see people already joining the room, and I'm going to start, welcoming all of you. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you here. Actually, I have a lot of questions already that I received via LinkedIn, direct messages, also in Instagram, where I run some Ask Me Anything. So, yeah, let's see where this event takes us. For the moment, I'm accepting people in the meeting room. And yes, hello, everyone. I'm just accepting people here. Okay. Okay, here. Accepted. Yeah, I see people already joining. So let's maybe start, because we don't have a lot of time and have a lot of questions to respond. So one of the questions, Kevin D is asking, do you still get nervous before speaking? All the time. All the time, absolutely. Getting nervous before speaking is the main reason that proves to you that what you're doing is important. So that's the reason why you get nervous. The main point here is how to channel nervous and nerves into, how to be more clear, how to channel that energy from nerves into positive energy so that you bring a positive energy to the room, and that's the energy that you will get back. So always remember, channel nerves into energy. That's the go-to strategy for public speaking. Rachel F. It's asking, what's the worst public speaking moment you've ever had? Well, I've had a few, of course, over the last 20 years, but I would say that one of the worst ones was when I was starting and my slides didn't work. So I had to prepare a presentation in corporate world, and I had everything, all the data, everything prepared, a very beautiful presentation with all the visuals, and suddenly the system didn't work. So my slides were gone. And it was only me on stage with all my data in my head. So I had to put and make more efforts in connecting with the audience and engaging with the audience with the information that I could take by heart from my brain rather than going through the slides. In the end, when you're losing that support that the slides provide you, it can be an amazing opportunity to become a boring presentation into a shiny presentation, which was, by the way, what happened with that presentation. It turned from something very data-oriented into something story-oriented, and people connected with the topic very well. They engaged a lot, they asked a lot of questions, and out of that weakness, a strength popped up. So never depend so much on slides. Always be trustful on the story you're telling, because you mastered that story, you present it to the audience, and you're good to go. Next question. Let me accept some more people here. Okay. Hello, welcome to everyone joining. Okay, next question is by Jason M. What's one simple trick that instantly improves someone's speaking presence? Well, I always say the same. Pause more and breathe. I always see in my trainings how leaders want to speak a lot, want to say everything. And the worst thing that happens is that as they know that they may have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they try to say everything in that amount of time. What happens is that first, they run out of air. They are not breathing. So they are getting more and more anxious. They start sweating, they start getting more stressed, they make mistakes, and they start over explaining or apologizing. That triggers a sensation, a feeling in the audience of uncomfortability. So if you really want to present well, pause, breathe, give every idea the space and time that it deserves. Your audience will be very grateful to that. So let's go to the next question. Oh, that's a funny one. Olivia S. is asking, coffee or water before a big talk? Well, I am a lover of coffee lover, always, 100%. However, when you are doing public speaking, especially in the early morning where the throat's still clearing out from the whole night, always water. The water will always help you speaking better, even though the coffee will help you think wisely. At least that's my case. Let's go to the next question. Marcus T is asking, if you had to give one piece of advice for better communication, what would it be? I always say that clarity beats cleverness. Sometimes people, especially very clever people, tend to say a lot of information. When you try to say too much information, clarity gets blurred in your story. I remember when I was presenting my PhD a long time ago, I wanted to say everything, 4 years of research in 15 minutes. Of course, that's impossible, and that would be overwhelming for the members of the tribunal. So when you take 3 ideas, which was what I did for my PhD presentation, when you take these 3 ideas and you create the whole story around these 3 ideas, it's easy for the audience to remember those hooks and then build the story around each of them, rather than if you want to tell 15 different key messages in 15 minutes. So always clarity beats cleverness. Remember that. Next question, Alex V is asking, how do you maintain executive presence when you strongly disagree with another senior leader in a meeting? Well, disagreements at workplace are always complicated, especially in executive level where each of them may have a lot of power. So how to keep confidence and presence? It's always based on composure. Always keep calm, no matter how the situation or the topic or the matter of the conversation is raising. You always keep calm. You always think about how are the best ways to go through. Always the best ways goes through asking the other person, why are you so convinced about that? Maybe is there something I'm not seeing? That would open the door to an open negotiation and conversation. That person will feel more comfortable of opening themselves to you. And that will immediately leverage down the level of stress. So you will be keeping your executive presence while at the same time you are positioning yourself at a higher level in terms of discussion, openness, and negotiation. So always remember composure, clarity, and openness to hear the other people's perspective. Monica J is asking, what's your framework for negotiating high-stakes decisions when multiple stakeholders have conflicting interests? Well, usually when you go to a negotiation, people tend to take the different points of view as conflicting interests, but that may not be the case. When you're going to a negotiation, the first and utmost important element is that there is a shared outcome needed for both of them. Both people sitting in a room, or the group of people sitting in a room to negotiate, they may have a shared outcome expected. That's the main core of the negotiation. Each of you, of course, may have different interests. That doesn't mean that may be conflicting. So, important point is always consider, is the interest of my counterpart a conflicting one to me, or it could be an opportunity in the future? Be open when hearing to another person in a negotiation, because that person may bring you something that, even if at the beginning it's taken as a conflict or a conflicting interest, it may be something interesting for you in the future to consider for the growth of your business. So sometimes, as I always say, threats turn into opportunities. It also applies to negotiations. So always be open-minded to any point that people bring in a conversation or a negotiation, because that can help you to strengthen more your position. Let's go to the next question that I see here in the chat. Yes, so popping here right now. So next question is Robert C. is asking, how do you persuade executives who already believe they are right? It usually happens in the corporate world. Executives who've been working for a long time in a specific topic, they're used to do things in a certain way. It has always worked. That's the only way they know. So they say, we go in this direction. However, we are aware of how quickly this world changes, how things are evolving in just overnight. So sometimes when you want to influence or persuade a person, an executive or a manager who is over you in a chain of command, to change their mind, you should consider focusing your speech on impact and evidences. So if you assess the way of working and evaluate and assess some evidences in which you realize that things could be improved, you can propose that recommendation along with the evidences, or at least the expectations on how this could make this better. So always focus your presentation when you want to persuade someone in evidences, and then recommendations and the impact of those recommendations. That will help you create a storytelling in the mind of the person you want to persuade, towards more understanding that their way may not be the right one and your way may be more efficient for the growth of the business. Let's go to the next one. Elena P. is asking, how do you project authority in a room where you're the youngest or newest person? Well, that's something I usually see in my training sessions. So with my students, they struggle a lot when they are presenting ideas, when they are pitching ideas to investors, because they really question themselves all the time. They are hesitating. And when you hesitate about yourself in a presentation, it's usually a signal of lack of preparation. If you want to tackle this, always get prepared in advance. I always say the best way to start the presentation is thinking about what do you want to say, how do you want to say it, and at least the first 2 or 3 minutes of your presentation, have it rehearsed, very much rehearsed. It doesn't matter if on the stage or at the meeting you change that completely, but it's better to improvise on something that you've already worked on rather than improvising from scratch. Because when you improvise from scratch, you have a lot of chances to make a mistake. So always, always, always prepare. Get prepared for your presentation, and that will be 80% of your success on the day of the presentation. Let's go for more questions now popping on the chat. Victor L. is asking, what is the fastest way to lose credibility during an executive presentation? I always say that for me, the way in which leaders usually lose their executive presence is when they lack clarity. When you are in a presentation, people expect to have the amount of information which is measurably recommended. for their understanding. So if you give to them so many ideas unconnected, but all one after the other, they may see themselves overwhelmed and their brain may not be able to process that amount of information. So you remember the question about clarity beats cleverness? So here's the same. So if you really want that they understand what you're saying, always be clear, straight to the point. Don't overwhelm them with too much information, because otherwise they will get lost. And the main issue here is that when you lack clarity, you tend to over-explain. And when you over-explain one and another, once and again, the same topic, they may start seeing contradictions between your ideas on how you express your idea the first time compared to how you express it on the second time. And then they may raise questions that could be uncomfortable for you, and they may trigger uncomfortability, stress, and anxiety in you, which will result in sweaty palms or shaking voice or added stress. So always clarity. With clarity, no over-explaining, and your presentation will be very smooth. Let's go to the next one. Danielle H is asking, what's the best way to start a presentation so you immediately grab attention? So the best way for me, it's always to start with a major statistic or highlighting a problem or highlighting a situation that needs to be tackled. But when you highlight these kind of elements, you should be very straight to the point. So it's not the same saying, for example, we need more resources. That's a need, but that's not a problem. A real problem with an impact of having more resources could be the lack of resources in this project is linked to the major delays we've been experiencing over the last 2 weeks. That's a real problem. That gives already the hint to the managers that something needs to be solved immediately, urgently. So you're giving the sense of urgency, but you're also highlighting a problem and you're grabbing the attention towards what you want to think. Otherwise, they may be seeing that your problem, the initial one that we presented, we don't have enough resources for this project, that you're complaining because you want to have more free time rather than have more resources to be able to tackle the project's challenges. So always remember, highlight the problem, but clarity. Clarity is always key in here. Let's go to the next question. Sophia R. is asking, what's your go-to structure when you need to communicate something important and quickly? Well, my go-to is always problem, insight, recommendation, and impact. I highlight the problem, just as I explained. I give the main insights on how this problem is affecting the whole company or the whole project. I provide the recommendations based on my experience, how we could solve this, and then anticipate the potential impact that these recommendations may bring to the project. That gives the whole story and the whole rationale for the manager in charge of making the decision to make an informed decision to move forward in the best way possible. So always remember, that's the storytelling you should follow. Brian K is asking, how do you handle someone who dominates the conversation in negotiations? Well, I usually have this question a lot in my trainings. So when I see people, especially mid-managers or young junior managers, who ask me precisely this thing. They always tell me that they are in meetings and there are some colleagues who monopolize the conversation and they're not even able to speak. So my advice always is ask questions. Always ask questions. When a person is monopolizing the conversation, take the opportunity for the first breath and then ask, may I ask you a question about one of the ideas that you were presenting just now? That will give you time to position yourself as an interactor. You're engaged in the presentation, and that will slow down the presentation. They will also consider the fact to involve people in the audience. That's something that it's very useful when you're starting in the corporate world, but also for the mid-managers, it's very useful to consider that having a presentation in which you're not interacting with anyone or you're not allowing anyone to be engaged with you, may be counterproductive. So always think about engaging an interaction that's a go-to always for this kind of events. So let's go for the next question. Lana V is asking, what's one body language habit that immediately improves executive presence? I always say that they are my two favorite: grounding and breathing. And for me, they are going together all the time. When you're grounded in your feet, you literally take all the stress to your legs. So you have here all the relaxation. So your shoulders are relaxed, your face is looking straight forward, your arms are relaxed so that you can move them like this. You're not trembling. And sometimes I see when people tremble when they are speaking, it's because they have all the stress here. So they start shaking. If you want to relax, you see my hand. If you want to relax, ground yourself. Put all the pressure, all the strength on your legs. So that will give you enough relaxation to move your hands in a way in which you show that you are owning the room. And then breathing. I see sometimes people, amazing professionals, they are 100% acknowledged of their topic. However, they want to say so many things at the same time that they forget of something very obvious: breathing. And when you breathe, you're giving not only your brain, but your audience's brain the time to reconsider, to process the information that you're giving to them. And that's why it's very important that you have this in mind. So always grounding and breathing. Trick for breathing exercises. I always do this exercise before any public speaking opportunity. I also did it today in the morning before starting this session. I breathe in for 4 seconds. I keep it on hold for 2 seconds, and then I exhale for 6 seconds. Try this for 2 minutes before your next presentation, and trust me, it will make a difference. Your nervous system goes down, you relax yourself, and you enter in the room with such a positive vibes that you are literally bring it and spread it all over the room. And that's precisely the kind of energy that people expect from speakers. And let's go to the last question, which comes from Anthony J. and says, what should you do if you lose your train of thought during a talk? Okay, so usually when you lose the train of thought during a talk, it's because you're paying attention to something that it's not your presentation. How come? So when you're presenting, you're surrounded by a lot of people. So you may be seeing a person making a movement with their head, so a gesture, someone taking the phone or sending a picture. Those kind of inputs kind of distract you. But if you pay attention to them, you will lose the train of your thoughts in the presentation. So the trick is your presentation matters. The people who came to the room are expecting to hear something that really matters. And what matters is a story. So always focus on your story. Build your story with a logical flow. So even if there are inputs around that can distract you, you will always remember where you are because your story is logic. It makes sense. But in any case, if you lose the train of thoughts while you're presenting, always breathe. It will give your brain time to reset and go back again to the part of the story in which the distraction came, and you will be able to rephrase the last point that you were saying. Always try to remember the last word that your mouth said, because that will help you to rephrase that idea and then connect to the next one. Usually the audience doesn't realize of you losing the train of thoughts if you use this technique. However, if you stop and say, oh, I don't remember exactly right now where I was, then they will, of course, realize that you lose the train of your thoughts. But always try to focus on your story. And that will be 100% the best way for not losing the train of your thoughts during a presentation. Okay, so these were all the questions that I've been receiving in the chat. let me check if there is any more questions coming from any of the channels. Okay, not in the emails, not in LinkedIn. Okay, that means that we covered all the questions. So I only have to say thank you so much for all of you who joined me in this event today. It was a pleasure for me to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming you in one of my training program sessions. If you want to improve your communication skills, your presentation skills, or your executive presence skills, please send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and let's reach out and see how we can move forward with these training programs about public speaking. I just launched them. So they are targeting different professional levels, so junior level, mid management, and executive level. You're very welcome to go through them and have a look at them. And yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you for joining me in this amazing venue of LA, California. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you and goodbye.